Thank you for joining us for this episode of Comply on the Fly with M3 and Karen B. Comply on the Fly is your trusted weekly resource for reliable insight and quick answers on common employee benefits compliance questions. Please note, this podcast and the contents herein do not constitute legal advice. Seek the advice of counsel for any employee benefits compliance-related guidance or strategy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen B. And the Comply on the Fly question of the week is, I have an employee who was recently divorced. He has removed his ex-spouse and dependents from the health coverage. In this situation, who do we send the COBRA election paperwork to? Well, this question requires a little more investigation than you would think. On its face, the question seems to be asking who gets the COBRA paperwork and how should it be sent. But when I saw this question, it prompted me to ask a few more questions of the client to make sure there was an understanding of who would actually be offered COBRA in this situation. Just as a reminder, in order for there to be a COBRA qualifying event, two things must exist. A triggering event, and those events are termination, reduction in hours, death, divorce, and loss of dependent status, and a loss of eligibility under the plan that would cause a loss of coverage. In this situation, the triggering event was divorce. But the original question stated that the employee removed not only the ex-spouse, but also the children. In a divorce situation, it would only be the ex-spouse that loses eligibility under the plan because they no longer meet the definition of a spouse. But what about the children? Even though the employee removed them from coverage, the children have not lost eligibility under the plan. They still qualify as dependents because a divorce does not mean the children are no longer children or dependents of the employee. Therefore, the employee voluntarily removed the children, and COBRA would not be available to those children. The only caveat to that would be if the children removed were stepchildren. Upon divorce, these children would no longer be stepchildren of the employee, and if the plan covers stepchildren, these children have now lost eligibility under the terms of the plan. Of course, it is always best practice to check your plan document for definitions. Bottom line, in most divorce situations, it is only the ex-spouse that would receive the offer of COBRA, even if the biological children are removed. This is because they have not experienced a loss of eligibility and therefore a loss of coverage. The employer here would provide the COBRA election paperwork to the ex-spouse. It is always a good idea to request an updated address for the ex-spouse from the employee. If there is no updated address, the employer can send the paperwork to the last known address of the ex-spouse. And that is your Comply on the Fly question of the week. Thanks for tuning in.
What's on your mind? If you have a pressing compliance question, send it to askkarenb@m3ins.com. We'll do our best to cover it in an upcoming episode. You can now follow and subscribe to Comply on the Fly on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Make sure to tune in next week and encourage others to join us.